I've lived in Harrow Cove my whole life. 37 miles of Maine coastline. One harbor. One lighthouse. One diner that smells like brine and burnt coffee from 6 in the morning until whenever Patty decides to close. I know every boat by its engine sound before it rounds the breakwater. I know the tide schedule by feel. I know which fishermen are superstitious about the color of the buoys, and which ones lie about their catch, and which ones will give you half a lobster just for helping with their lines without being asked. I know this place the way you only know somewhere when you stayed after everyone else left. Some people call that loyalty. Some people call it not having anywhere else to go. I call it mine. My name is Eli Marsh. I'm 29 years old. I run the Foghorn Station at Harrow Point Lighthouse. I also keep the tide logs for the harbor master, and in the summers the first rent out the 2 guest rooms in the keeper's cottage to people who think lighthouses are romantic until 3 in the morning when the foghorn goes off. And I'm raising a 4-year-old by myself. His name is Noah. He has my dark hair and my stubborn chin and someone else's green eyes. I try not to think about the eyes too much. It was 5 in the morning when the boat came in. I was already up. Noah had been up at 4 because he wanted to watch the tide come in, and when Noah wants to watch the tide come in at 4 in the morning, you get up. We were on the dock. Noah in his yellow rain boots. Me with coffee I hadn't tasted yet. The fog was still thick. I heard the engine first. Wrong sound. An engine running rough. Skipping every third beat like something was caught in the intake. I set my mug down and listened. Noah heard it too. He turned toward the water. "That boat's in trouble," he said. "For years old." He said it the way Patty from the diner says the weather's about to turn. Not a guess. A fact. "Yeah," I said. "I think so." The bow came through the fog first, and I saw the name on the hull before I saw anything else. White letters on dark blue. Whitmore and Sons. The coffee mug was suddenly very cold in my hands. I hadn't heard that name in 4.5 years. I'd gotten good at not hearing it, and now it was 15 feet off my dock. I had about 30 seconds before the person on that boat could see me clearly through the fog. 30 seconds to decide what my face was going to do. I spent most of them failing at that. Chapter 2. Let me tell you about Caden Whitmore. Not the version I carry around when I'm angry. The real one. The one I fell in love with when I was 23, and he was 24, and neither of us had any idea what we were doing. He grew up 3 streets up from the harbor. Whitmore and Sons had been running Harrow Cove's main fishing operation for 3 generations. His grandfather built it. His father expanded it. And Caden was supposed to be the 3rd chapter of that story. He had all of it on his shoulders from the time he was old enough to hold a rod. He was also the first person who ever made me feel like my quietness was not a problem to fix. Most alphas I'd known talked over me, talked around me, treated my low-rank status like a flaw they were gracious enough to overlook. Caden listened. He asked questions and then actually waited for the answers. He had this way of going still when you were talking. Not impatient still, not distracted still, just present. Like whatever you were saying was the only thing happening in the world. I thought that was just who he was. I didn't understand then that it was also a decision, and that some decisions don't hold when pressure comes in. We were together for 2 years. Not officially. The Whitmore family had opinions about what Caden's Omega should look like. And those opinions did not include the harbor master's assistant whose mother cleaned rooms at the Cove Inn and whose father had been lost at sea when Eli was 11. So we were quiet about it. I told myself quiet was okay. That quiet was just temporary. That once things settled, we'd be loud. We never got loud. The accusation came in March. A cold Tuesday. Derek Whitmore, Caden's cousin, who had wanted Caden's spot at the family table since they were kids, told Caden he'd seen me leaving the Greenway Motor Lodge with another alpha. He had a jacket. He had a blurry photo on his phone. The jacket wasn't mine. The photo wasn't me. But it was good enough for someone who was looking for a reason. Caden didn't ask me first. He didn't call. He didn't come to the lighthouse. He didn't give me 30 seconds to say that's not true. He showed up at the harbor the next evening when most of the town was there for the spring rigging season, in front of his father, his cousins, his crew, and anyone else who wanted to watch. He looked at me and said, "We're done. Don't come to the house again." 7 words. That was it. I stood there with a coil of rope in my hands, and I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have words, because I had too many, and none of them were going to land. Not there. Not like that. Not in front of all those people who were already looking at me like they'd expected this. I put the rope down. I walked back to the lighthouse. 3 weeks later, I took a pregnancy test in the lighthouse bathroom, and I made the hardest decision of my life. Chapter 3. I had exactly 4 seconds to get my face right before Caden Whitmore stepped onto my dock. I didn't make it. He looked the same. Not exactly. 4.5 years had put something in his jaw that wasn't there before, a tiredness, maybe, or something he'd been carrying without putting down. But the eyes were the same, green, and already on me before he'd finished tying off the line. Eli, he said, not a greeting, just my name, like he was checking if it still fit. Your engine's running rough, I said. I know. Something's in the intake. I know that too. Noah was staring at him. He does this. He picks someone and he just studies them. Quietly. Completely. Like he's filing something away. Caden looked down at Noah. Something crossed his face. I stepped in front of Noah before I knew I'd done it. Not trying to hide him. Just buy myself a second. You need to use the radio? I said. I can call Peterson's Marina. I can fix it myself if I can tie off for an hour, Caden said. I'll pay for the slip. Lighthouse Pier isn't a paid slip. Then I'll owe you one. That used to mean something. I almost said that. Instead I said, 1 hour. And I picked up Noah and walked back toward the cottage before he could say anything else. Noah looked over my shoulder at Caden the whole way. Who's that? He said. Someone who needs help with his boat. Does he know about engines? Yes. Does he know our engine? No. I could teach him, Noah said. You don't know our engine either. I know some of it, he said. He was not wrong. I watched through the kitchen window while I made breakfast. Caden worked quietly. He found the problem in 12 minutes. A busted impeller housing, which I could have told him myself, but he hadn't asked. He fixed it in 40. And when he was done, he sat on the dock for a while and looked out at the water. Not at the cottage, just the water. And I made myself stop watching. I could have gone out. I could have asked if he needed anything. I didn't, because some doors, once you open them, don't close easy. And I wasn't ready to find out which kind this one was. Chapter 4. Noah found him on his own. I turned around from the stove, and he was gone. I looked out the window, and there he was, standing on the dock next to Caden Whitmore. Shoes barely tied, rain jacket half-zipped, talking. I put the spatula down. I walked outside slowly enough that I could hear what they were saying before they noticed me. That's a Simpson-style impeller, Noah was saying. Dad showed me a picture. Dad. He means me. I'm Dad and Pa both, depending on the day. Caden was crouched down to Noah's level. He showed you diagrams? Caden said. He shows me everything, Noah said. He says you can't love something you don't understand. That's true, Caden said. Do you love boats? Yeah, I do. How many do you have? 4 right now. Noah considered this seriously. That's a lot to understand, he said. Caden almost smiled. Not quite. Like the muscles knew what to do, but got stopped halfway. It is, he said. Takes time. How long? My whole life so far. Noah thought about that. I'm 4, he said. I've got time. I stepped onto the dock. Caden stood up. We looked at each other over Noah's head. He found me, Caden said. I can see that. Caden stopped. Something careful in his face. He's great. I put my hand on Noah's shoulder. Time to come in for breakfast. Can the boatman have breakfast? Noah said. The boatman has to get back, I said. Caden was still watching me. Not pushing. Not asking for anything. Just looking at me the way I used to think meant he was choosing me. Thank you for the slip, he said. Get your engine checked properly in town, I said. That impeller will hold for now, but the housing's cracked. He nodded. He untied his line, and he went. Noah watched until the boat was out of sight. He's coming back, Noah said. He's not, bud. He is, Noah said. Certain. The way he says the tide is turning. He was right again. Chapter 5. That night, after Noah was asleep, I sat in the keeper's room at the top of the lighthouse. I don't always go up there, but when I need to be somewhere that the walls can't close in, I go up. The whole cove was dark and glittering below. I let myself ask the question I'd been not asking for 4.5 years. Did I do the right thing? Not leaving him. That part wasn't complicated. When someone rejects you in front of your entire community, when they choose someone else's lie over your truth without giving you a single chance to speak, you don't stay. That part was clear. The complicated part was what I did after. I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after the harbor. I was 24. I had $42 in my savings account and a job that paid $11 an hour in a lighthouse cottage that belonged to the Harrow Cove Maritime Trust. And the father of my child had just told me, in front of everyone, that we were done. I could have called him. I almost did. I stood outside on the lighthouse steps at 2 in the morning with his number on my screen. And I realized something. I was scared he'd come back. Not because I didn't want him. Because I knew exactly why he'd come back. Not for me. Not because he'd looked at the evidence and found it wrong. Not because he'd thought about it and realized he trusted me more than he trusted Derek. He'd come back because I was pregnant. He'd come back out of obligation. Out of Whitmore duty. Out of exactly the kind of reason that wasn't about me at all. And I had spent 2 years being the secret. The temporary. The one he loved quietly because loud was complicated. I was not going to spend the rest of my life being the obligation. So I didn't call. I told my mother. She cried for 30 minutes, and then she said, "Okay, what do you need?" I told Patty from the diner because she found out anyway. She showed up with 2 casseroles and said, "You need anything at all, you call me first, not him." I told Dale the harbor master because he was going to notice when I couldn't lift the mooring lines anymore. He just nodded and started assigning me the records work instead. I didn't tell anyone else. When Noah was born in October, I named him Noah James Marsh. His last name was mine, and I built a life. I built it small and solid and real. Out of tide logs and foghorn schedules, and a little boy who took to the sea like he'd been waiting for it. Was it the right thing? I don't know. I used to be more certain. But I watched Caden crouch down to Noah's level on that dock this morning. And I watched Noah look up at him with those green eyes. And I'm less certain tonight than I was yesterday. Chapter 6. He came back 3 days later with his actual boat engine. He had the impeller housing and a replacement gasket and a question about whether I had a spare prop wrench because the one he borrowed for Peterson's was metric and the fitting was SAE. I had a spare prop wrench. I told myself that wasn't a sign. Noah was at the table doing his shapes workbook when Caden came up the dock. He saw Caden through the window before I did. He was off the chair and out the door before I got to it. This is the thing about my son. He doesn't give his attention to just anyone. He is 4 years old, and he already has a system. He watches first. He asks questions. He waits to see how you answer the ones that have wrong answers. He's done this with everyone. Dale, the harbor master, got 3 weeks of observation before Noah decided he was acceptable. Patty from the diner got approved in one afternoon when she gave him a straight answer about why lobsters turn red when you cook them instead of making up something cute. Caden Whitmore got approved somewhere in the first morning. I don't know what sealed it. I didn't let myself watch closely enough to see. But by the second visit, Noah had assigned him a spot. On the dock, by the second cleat, where the view of the whole cove was best. That was Noah's spot, and now he was sharing it. They spent 2 hours on the engine that morning. Noah handed him tools. Not always the right ones. But Caden never said that. He'd just hold it for a second and say, "Good thinking, but let me try this one first," and Noah would nod and watch and file it away. I watched from the kitchen window for longer than I should have. Then I went out. "How's the housing?" I said. "Better," Caden said. I replaced the whole assembly. "Good." He looked at me. "Eli, I'm going to start lunch." "Noah, can I come back?" Quiet. Careful. Not the way someone asks when they know the answer. The way they ask when they genuinely don't. I looked at him, then at Noah, who was very pointedly studying the propeller and pretending not to listen. "I haven't decided," I said. Caden nodded. "Okay," he said. No push. No argument. No, but I just okay. That was new. He stayed for lunch because Noah asked him before I could head off. Noah sat between us at the kitchen table like a very small referee. He told Caden about the tide log, about the foghorn schedule, about the time he found a harbor seal on the South Rock last October and named her Margot. Caden listened. Not politely. Actually, he asked follow-up questions about Margot. And then he said, "You smell like your dad." Noah looked up. "What?" "Your scent," Caden said. "Marine alphas have a bass note. Yours is almost identical to—" He stopped. Something shifted in his face. He looked at me. I had gone very still. "Almost identical to what?" Noah said. Caden's eyes didn't leave mine. "Someone I used to know," he said. Chapter 7. He was waiting on the dock when I came out that evening. Noah was inside with my mom, who drives up every Thursday. Caden was sitting on the second cleat. Noah's spot. I walked out and stood at the end of the dock and looked at the water for a moment before I looked at him. "How old is he?" Caden said. Not a question. 4, I said. Eli, 4.5 in October. He was quiet. A long quiet. The kind where a person is doing math they already know the answer to. "Why didn't you tell me?" I turned to look at him. "You want to have that conversation right now?" "Yes." "Okay," I said. "Because you stood in front of the whole harbor and told me we were done. Because you didn't give me 1 minute to respond. Because you chose Derek's blurry phone photo over 2 years of knowing me." I held his gaze. "That's why." Caden's jaw was tight. "I should have asked you first." "Yeah. I should have come to you before I." "Caden." He stopped. "I know you should have," I said. "You knowing that now doesn't change what you did." "I know. And I was pregnant and alone and 24 years old, and I had $42 in my account," I said. "And I made a decision, and I would make it again." He looked at the water. "I had a right to know," he said. His voice was even. Not cruel, but it landed. "Maybe," I said. "But you gave up the right to my trust when you didn't give me the right to be heard." He didn't answer. I waited. "Is his name Noah?" he said finally. "Yes." "Does he know?" I looked at the harbor. "He knows he has a father who lives somewhere else," I said. "He hasn't asked much past that. I want to be in his life." "I know, Eli. I know," I said again. "I'm not saying no. I'm saying I need to think. And I need you to let me think without showing up every 3 days with an engine part." Something close to a real expression crossed his face. "Is that what I've been doing?" "You know it is." He was quiet a moment. "Is he happy?" he said. I looked back toward the cottage where the light was on in the kitchen, and I could hear Noah talking at my mother in his mile-a-minute way. "Yeah," I said. "He's really happy." Caden nodded once. He got up. He walked to his boat. And at the end of the dock, he stopped without turning around. "For what it's worth," he said, "the photo wasn't enough. I know that. I knew it then, too." He got on the boat and left. And I stood on the dock until I couldn't hear the engine anymore. I knew it then, too. That sentence was going to cost him. Chapter 8. I want to tell you what happened when Caden talked to Derek. I only know it secondhand. He told me about it later. Not to perform it. Not to use it as proof of anything. Just because I'd asked. Derek admitted it in about 10 minutes. He needed Caden to step back from the company so Derek's father could push through a restructuring. Caden being tied to a low-rank Omega with no status, no family money, no useful connections. That was the wedge Derek needed. He'd borrowed a jacket from someone he knew. He'd found a grainy photo on an old forum and cropped it. He'd timed it for when Caden was already under family pressure about the future of the company. He didn't even have to push that hard, Caden told me. "I know," I said. "He handed me something that let me not deal with the thing I was scared of." "And you took it," I said. "I took it." He was looking at the floor. I let him finish. "He admitted all of it," Caden said. He had a folder on his computer. The original photo. The conversation with my uncle about the restructuring. He'd been building it for months. He looked up. My father already knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what. We talked for 3 hours. "What are you going to do about Derek?" "That's already handled." "Is it?" "Yes," he said. And something in his voice told me not to push that question further. "And your family?" My father already knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what. We talked for 3 hours. He paused. "It's not fixed, but it's out." I nodded. "Eli, I need to—" "Come back tomorrow," I said. "I need to say something." "I know you do," I said. "And I need a night to decide how much I want to hear it. Come back tomorrow." He came back tomorrow. That night, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after Noah went to sleep. I thought about Marcus building that folder for months, planning the timing, picking the photo, choosing the right moment when Caden was already under pressure. And I thought about how easy it had been, how little it had taken. That was the thing I kept coming back to. Not what Derek did, but how little resistance there was. I got up and went to check the foghorn logs, because some thoughts you have to put down before they eat the whole night. Chapter 9. He was early, 7 in the morning. Noah was already up. He saw Caden's truck from the window and said, very calmly, "He's here," like he'd been expecting it, like the tide. I let him in. We sat at the kitchen table. Noah was there for 4 minutes before I bribed him with a new tide chart workbook, and he went to the front room. Caden sat across from me with both hands around a mug of coffee. He said, "I believe Derek because part of me wanted to." I looked at him. "Not because I wanted to hurt you," he said. "Because I was scared. My family was pushing me. The company was in the middle of that whole restructuring fight. And you were." He stopped. "I was what?" "You were the most real thing in my life," he said. "And real things are the scariest things to lose. So when something showed up that looked like a reason to step back before I could lose you, you took it," I said. "I took it." I wrapped my hand around my own mug. "I know Derek set it up," I said. "And I know that's on him. But that's not the whole story, Caden." "I know, because there's something I've needed to say for a long time," I said. "And I need you to actually hear it." "I'm listening," he said. He went still. The way he used to when something mattered. "Do you know what the worst part was?" I said. "Not the harbor. Not the 7 words. What was it?" "The week before," I said, "when I could feel something shifting in you, and I kept telling myself I was imagining it." I looked at my coffee. I knew something was wrong, and I didn't ask, because I was afraid of the answer. Caden was quiet. "That's not your fault." "I know it's not," I said. "I'm not saying it to blame myself. I'm saying it because we both walked up to that edge and neither of us said anything out loud." I met his eyes. "That's not just you. That was us." He held my gaze. Something in his face shifted. Not relief. Something more careful than that. "I didn't know you saw it," he said. "I always see things," I said. "I just don't always say them in time." We sat with that for a moment. "I'm saying it now," I said. "So are you. That's what this is." He nodded slowly. And I said what I've been holding for 4.5 years. Chapter 10. You didn't lose me because of what Derek did. Caden went very quiet. "You lost me because when he handed you that lie, you were relieved." He didn't deny it. "There is a part of you," I said, "that had been looking for a door. A way to keep loving me without having to fight your family for it. Without having to make the choice out loud." I kept my voice steady. "Derek didn't push you. He just unlocked a door you were already standing in front of." The kitchen was very still. Outside, the fog was coming in off the water. "You're right," Caden said. "I know I'm right. I'm not going to argue with you." "Good. Because there's more." He waited. "I was never going to be the thing your family wanted," I said. "My father drowned. My mother cleans rooms for $9 an hour. I'm a low-rank Omega with no pack name and no family money. I knew that going in. I knew what I was walking into when I got involved with a Whitmore." I looked at him. "What I didn't know was whether you were capable of standing up for something your family didn't choose for you." Silence. "I still don't know," I said, "because we never got there. You cut it off before we got to the part where it got hard." Caden had both hands flat on the table. Not defensive, just still. "What do you need from me?" he said. "I need you to understand that I am not a problem you solve," I said. "I am not a wrong you correct by showing up at the right answer. And Noah is not a wound you close by being present now." I held his gaze. "He is a whole person. He has a full life. He doesn't need you to complete it. He might want you in it, but he doesn't need you." "In you," Caden said. The question landed differently than I expected. Not desperate, not pushing, just honest. "I'm still figuring that out," I said. Caden nodded slowly. He looked at his coffee. "I don't want to be something that happened to you," he said quietly. "Then stop acting like the answer is obvious, and I just need convincing," I said. "Start acting like this is something that has to be built. Because it is. And it's going to take a long time. And it might not work." "I know," he said. "And you might have to do most of the work." "I know that too." I looked at him. Something in his face I hadn't seen there before. Not guilt. Not performance. Just patience. Real patience. The kind of person has when they're not trying to get anywhere in particular. Just trying to be somewhere honestly. "Okay," I said. He looked up. "Come back Saturday," I said. "Noah wants to show you the tide chart from last month. He's been working on the notation system." Something crossed Caden's face then. Careful. Soft. Not daring to be more than what it was. "Okay," he said. And Caden, "Yeah. The next time you don't know something about me, ask me." He held my gaze. "I will," he said. "I promise." I got up. I picked up both mugs. "Saturday," I said. "Saturday," he said. Chapter 11. Weeks passed. I want to be honest about this part. It wasn't fast. It wasn't a montage. It was slow and sometimes uncomfortable and full of moments where I wasn't sure if I was making the right call. But Caden showed up, not to the lighthouse every day, not with gifts, not with declarations. He showed up for things that needed doing. He drove my mom's car to Portland when the transmission went out because I couldn't leave Noah and she couldn't afford the tow. He fixed the south dock cleat that had been loose since February. He came Saturday mornings and learned the tide notation system from a 4-year-old who corrected him twice and praised him once. He asked for nothing. He didn't push. When I needed space, he took it. When I pushed back, he didn't collapse. He just waited, like someone who had decided to be somewhere and wasn't going anywhere. Noah watched all of this, filing, recalibrating, the way he does. One Saturday in November, I went up to the top of the lighthouse to run the weekly equipment check. When I came back down, Caden and Noah were at the kitchen table. Noah had gotten out the sea charts. He was pointing to Harrow Point and explaining the current patterns to Caden, who was following with full concentration and only occasionally being corrected. I stood in the doorway. Neither of them noticed me. Right here, Noah said, tapping the chart, is where the current splits. If you go left, you end up fighting the tide all the way to Beaumont Shoal. But if you go right, you ride it to open water, Caden finished. Noah looked up. Yeah. Surprised and pleased. You know it. My grandfather taught me, Caden said. Noah considered this. Is your grandfather still alive? No. He died when I was about your age. Do you miss him? Caden was quiet for a second. Yeah, he said. I do. I miss my other grandpa, Noah said. I never met him. He drowned. He paused. Dad says he loved the water even more than I do. That's a good way to remember someone, Caden said. Noah thought about that. Then he looked back at the chart. So, if you go right, I stepped away from the doorway before they could see me. I needed a minute that wasn't in front of either of them. That night, after Noah went to sleep, Caden and I sat on the dock. It was cold. We had coffee. We didn't talk for a while. Just looked at the water. Then Caden said, he's incredible. Yeah, I said. I know. You did that. He did most of it himself. Eli. Caden looked at me. You raised someone extraordinary. Alone. From nothing. For 4 years. It wasn't nothing, I said. I had my mom. And Dale. And Patty. I wrapped my hand around my mug. And the water. Still, he said. Still, I said. We were quiet for a while more. I don't know what we're doing, I said finally. I know, Caden said. I'm not ready to call it anything. I'm not asking you to. I looked at him. You're being very patient. I'm trying, he said. I owe you about 4.5 years of patience. I almost smiled. Not quite. Don't keep score, I said. That's not how I want this to work. How do you want it to work? I thought about it. One day at a time, I said. No promises past what's real. And Noah first. Always. Always, Caden said. No hesitation. The harbor moved below us. Cold and quiet and dark. And for the first time in a long time, the quiet felt like something other than just being alone. Chapter 12. Noah came to me on a Sunday morning in December. I was doing the fog log. He appeared at my elbow the way he does. No warning, fully formed. Can I ask you something? He said. Always. He sat up on the stool next to my desk. Crossed his arms. Thought for a second. Is Caden my dad? I put the pen down. I turned to face him. He was looking at me with those green eyes that I have spent 4.5 years trying not to think about too hard. Yes, I said. He nodded, like he already knew. How long have you known? I said. Since the smell thing, he said. He smells like you, but different, like the other half. He said it the way he says everything. Straightforward. Certain, as if the world should already have organized itself around the fact. You could have asked sooner, I said. I was getting more data first, he said. I looked at my son. And, I said. He passed, Noah said. Yeah. He listens, Noah said. He doesn't pretend to know things he doesn't know. He fixed the cleat on the south dock without Dad asking him to. He uncrossed his arms. And he looks at you like you're the tide chart. What does that mean? Like if he doesn't pay attention, he might miss something important. I was quiet for a moment. Noah. What? He made mistakes, I said. A long time ago. That's why he wasn't here. Noah looked at me seriously. Are you still mad at him? I thought about it. Some days, I said. A little. But he's fixing it. He's trying. Noah nodded. Okay, he said. He slid off the stool. "Can I call him Dad?" he said. "That's up to you, bud." "I know it is," he said, as if I'd said something obvious. "That's why I'm asking if I want to." He thought about it for 3 more seconds. "I want to," he said, and he went back to his workbook. Chapter 13. Caden came that afternoon. Saturday had stretched to Sunday, to somewhere around mid-November. He came up the dock. Noah went out to meet him, which he'd been doing for weeks. I watched from the window. Noah said something. Caden went still, the way he goes still when something matters. Noah said something else, and Caden sat down on the dock, right there, on the cold December boards, at Noah's eye level. And Noah walked forward, and Caden put his arms around him, and they stayed like that for a long moment with the water behind them and the fog coming in and the whole harbor going quiet. I turned away from the window. I pressed my back against the kitchen wall and looked at the ceiling. I let it be quiet for a minute. Then I dried my eyes on the dish towel, and I went outside to be with both of them. Epilogue. It's March. For months since December. The harbor is just starting to come back to life. The fishing boats are getting their annual maintenance. The summer moorings are going back in. The days are longer by 1.5 minutes per week, which Noah has been logging since January. He logged a lot of things now. Tide charts, sunrise times, bird migration patterns, and the number of times Caden has come to the lighthouse this month. He doesn't show me that last one. I found it by accident. The number was 17. Caden and I are not a simple story. There are still days when something he says hits an old nerve and I have to take a walk before I respond. There are still nights I lie awake and ask myself if I'm building something or just getting used to something. But there are also mornings where he shows up at 6 with coffee and asks how the tide log went and actually listens to the answer. There are Saturday afternoons where all 3 of us are on the dock and Noah is explaining something with great authority and Caden is following with complete attention and the sun is on the water. And it doesn't feel complicated. It just feels like ours. Last week, Noah asked Caden to teach him to navigate by stars. Not GPS. Stars. Like his great-grandfather did. Caden said he'd have to relearn it himself first. Noah said that was fine. They'd learn it together. They're doing it now. Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Clear sky permitting. I watch in the lighthouse window sometimes. 2 people at the end of the dock. One small. One not. Both looking up. I used to think staying in Harrow Cove after everyone else left meant I had nowhere else to go. I don't think that anymore. I think staying meant I knew exactly what this place was worth. I knew it was worth the fog and the cold and the $9 an hour winters. I knew it was worth building something here, even when I was building it alone. My son knows every boat in this harbor by sound. He knows the tides by feel. He knows which fishermen will give you half a lobster if you help with their lines without being asked. He knows this place the way you only know somewhere when you chose it. Not because you had to, because you understood what it was. The foghorn goes off at 3 this morning. Noah doesn't even stir. He's been sleeping through it since he was 2 weeks old. I check the equipment. I log the time. I look out at the water. And the lighthouse turns. And the harbor holds. And I go back to sleep. And